Welcome to the foundation.
Thank you.
Is this, by the way, the first time that you show your works in Berlin in a museum of this kind?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was in a gallery show like 7 or 8 years ago, but it's the first time in Berlin in a museum.
So
fantastic.
We are very lucky to have you here.
Well, I'm very lucky, thank you.
How do you become a photographer? I mean, I know that you studied law at Utrecht.
Yes.
And it was a little bit too dry or too uninspiring for you?
Yeah, it was terrible.
For your character?
Yes, it was more like a family's choice. But the photography point is, no, I remember I had a friend and he didn't use his camera, and I was 14 years old, and he had a beautiful Pentax Spotmatic. And I'm talking about 1972, and I was so fascinated by this camera that I said, well, if you don't use it, please let me buy it, make me a good price. And then I got totally into this, and I made my dark room in the house, and then it's how it started actually.
And was portrait from the very beginning the main topic, or was everything at the very beginning? So you mean landscape and everything else, and color photography and black and white photography, both?
Well, it's a very good question, because I still have, when you visit me in my studio in Amsterdam, I have a pile of like 35 photo poche. You remember the little books about the famous reportage photographers? Cartier-Bresson, Werner Bischoff, Kappa, everybody, Lartigue. And I started to collect them. And actually, till today, it still inspires me. Although when I started commercially and I did fashion and advertising, but my love stayed always with portraits. And then in '98 I went to live in New York, and I started really to work on my portraits. That was a starting point, yeah.
So we see men and women in their show, and for you, is it a little bit more easy to photograph women, or?
Well, you know, this show shows already that we don't have a lot of women in this show. And it's not because I didn't shoot in my life, because I did also in the early days a lot of fashion shoots with models and models, but I must publicly admit that I get so bored when a model is already 1 hour in a makeup with a hairdresser, that my whole appetite of doing the show, I'm already in my mind with something else. And that's what bothers me a lot. And there are very few women prepared to pose for you without makeup. And I do understand that, because it's a totally different ball game, a totally different mental game, mentality. So if I can shoot them practically without makeup, and they agree, well, then we have maybe a good chance of shooting a nice portrait.
And do you have a feeling, I mean, during the shooting, that this is a very good shooting, that you will have a very good result finally? Or do you feel sometimes, are you astonished finally that during a shooting, which was probably not felt good, you had a good result?
Let's say that after 25 years shooting, that you're so experienced that you get away with an okay picture anyway. You're never satisfied, huh? You're never satisfied. So I say the best picture is the best compromise of the day. It can always be better. There are always little facts who go positive for you or negative, and especially when you do a portrait.
Indeed.
I mean, the subject, I think, the subject decides how long time I can do. Because I'm a quick shooter, and I don't want to, I'm not the type of photographer who does a sitting with a person in a studio for 1 hour and go on and go on. I try to capture something of that person, and if I have to speak for myself, then I would be bored after 50 minutes and a photographer changing film, and I would give less of myself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So you have to try to grab it in the
Immediately.
feeling, and you have to know what you want.
Is portrait photography something about catching the aura of the others?
Well, you know, let's say that Evidence said once that there is not such a thing as an objective portrait. Every portrait is a personal interpretation by the maker, and I totally agree with him on that. Yeah. Like, but still, it's nice to capture, to have the idea that you capture something of a person which you want to show a little bit more. And I mean, I absolutely do some research on my subjects.
So we have big sizes, smaller sizes. Yeah. Do you work in editions, or how do you decide for a certain format, for a certain size let's say for the Doherty, and another one is a little smaller? Yeah. How do you decide for the
Well, size? You know, like when I started 59 magazine like 8 years ago, so I do all these artist portraits and interviews. So for the magazine, it's quite a big magazine. It's 30 by 40 centimeters. So we have this size already.
I mean, you publish your work, you bring it out to the world. And is it for you a big difference? I mean, if you hang the picture here onto the wall, and if you publish the same
in the magazine
and probably as well about the show?
It is different, I think.
And how different?
If you do it in your publication, it's always connected to a nice interview or a story. And then it's a combination of the story and the picture, a synthese. And here, it's totally based on the picture you see. So I think it's different. But I think definitely as being very visual, you cannot make a story in your magazine better by a good story and a bad picture. And so the visuality and the force of the image is always number one.
The whole magazine is again a kind of an exhibition, even with the interiors. So you tell us.
I love always the little details. Then you are in his studio, and then you see a little portrait of his friend Dennis Hopper.
Right.
You know, I like always. Sometimes I really love to shoot the environment of a person without seeing the person. Sometimes this picture tells more about the person than you shoot a portrait of him.
Indeed.
I have the freedom with my publication to choose the subject I want.
Right.
So it's really like fulfilling your own dream in that way.
Right. I guess it was in New York that you decided for black and white photography.
Let's say black and white was always my first love.
Right.
Everything, all my personal works was and is in black and white.
Right.
And now, since 12 years, I never do one color shot anymore, because for me, in a way, it's like, I think it was Cartier-Bresson also, he said like, couleur, c'est la réalité, et black and white, noir et blanc, c'est la vérité. And I don't like reality. I think in black and white.
Yes, I can imagine.
I don't think in color.
One can see it. Lots of photographers using the post-production, you know, a lot.
Yeah, but they're good at it. I'm terrible.
So, last question. Do you have still your own darkroom?
No. No.
This okay.
I don't. That's over.
That's over.
That's over, that's pasta. And I stopped already long time ago with the darkroom, because there are people who are super printers.
Right.
And I'm better in telling somebody how the print should be, because I never arrive on myself. Bravo for the photographers who can make a beautiful print. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mart.
You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. Good conversation.
Yeah.